Good evening, everyone. We will call to order the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee for meeting for February 27th, 2024. And Madam Clerk, if we can have a roll call and posting of the agenda, please.
Member Zaragoza.
Here.
Member Madrigal.
Here.
Chair McDonald.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on February 20th, 2024.
Thank you. And if everyone would please join me in saluting the flag of our nation and stand. Hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. That takes us to item B, public comments on items not on the agenda. This would be the time for any public comments on items that are under the purview of this committee, but not agendized. And understand that if you do make comments, we're unable to respond other than to ask staff to follow up later on. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Chair McDonald, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item C, consent agenda. The only item on there is the approval of minutes from the January 23rd, 2024 meeting. Have the members been able to read the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Any corrections or additions or changes?
No, move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Member Madrigal, a second by Member Zaragoza. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
And I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, I should have asked you if there were any speakers on that item. But
No, we do not have any speakers for this item, virtually or in person.
just trying
Thank
to
you,
be-
Chair
Make
McDonald.
sure I don't miss anything here.
You're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Takes us to item D. First up is the fire department. Subject is adopt a resolution acknowledging receipt of a report submitted by the fire chief of the Oxnard Fire Department regarding the inspection of certain occupancies. And the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution acknowledging receipt of a report prepared by the Oxnard Fire Department's fire chief concerning the inspection of specific occupancies as mandated by sections 13146.2 and 1341.6.3 of the California Health and Safety Code. Pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel, and Chief Hamilton is here from the fire department. Do the members have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to share that according to, good report too, by the way, excellent report.
Thank you.
And my understanding that this is a mandated item, and of course, the fire prevention is a big role, as you mentioned. And of course, training of firefighters is really important, and especially with Coupa. Coupa is really important. And one of the things that I really got from your presentation, Chief, was that potentially you're short right now, and you can only do so many inspections. And Coupa is extremely important, because a lot of hazardous materials that are produced in different organizations, and I think it's important. And also the smoke detectors, I think, is extremely important that you're doing, and I think you're looking at probably, or going to do about 5,000, and you've done about 7,500 over a certain time, and one of the important things that I saw too is that you're working with listos to make sure that the Latino community, Hispanic community, knows the value of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide, which I think is important, Chief. And basically that's what I have. Any additional questions, or additions or subtractions?
Thank you for those comments, Mayor. The one piece of, a couple of things actually, is this past weekend we had our last Sound the Alarm event, which is our partnership with the American Red Cross. And so I'm pleased to report that we did complete all our smoke detector installations per the grant. We had until this Friday to complete our work on the grant, and so that that means we have installed 7,500 smoke detectors since we received that grant, which is 3,000 of those occurred in the last 5 months. We got a special exception from FEMA to extend the grant, and we were able to use those funds to install 3,000 additional smoke detectors. And then the Listos program you referenced, that's sort of, we're just starting down the road with the Listos program, but we're looking to do big things with that program here in 2024.
And Mr. Chair, I also want to thank the numerous volunteers that help out, I had the opportunity a couple of years back to go out with the firefighters to place smoke detectors and so forth. And if we were knocking on doors, some people didn't want to answer. And in Spanish, we kind of said, hey, it's smoke detectors. Oh, they opened the door. Yeah. He says, not going to cost you anything, but if you don't have one, we'll place one for you, which I think is really, really good. Life-saving items.
Absolutely, and we really want to keep that momentum going, and so we're looking for additional grant funds. We will be applying for another grant for that in the grant will probably be released in the next 2 months. We hope to receive that funding by July or August. So we're continuing that momentum and continuing that push, because I think there's still much work to do in terms of installing smoke alarms.
Great, thank you, sir.
No, just a brief comment. Thank you for all the work, and I know that you said you're at the beginning process, so hopefully everything goes well, and with hopefully the better training, the temporary positions, we have better numbers next year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, and I'm proud to say that the Red Cross team came by my house Saturday morning, and I was honored and proud to be able to tell them I already have smoke detectors. They all work. In fact, I set one off last Saturday cooking, so I know they're functional.
The barbecue?
No, inside the kitchen. Well,
Oh, my God.
I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I goofed. But
I'm glad to hear they're working.
yeah. Well, I don't cook quite as well as a fireman does, but, Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Chair McDonald?
I'm sorry. Are there any speakers on this item?
No, there's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
We need to get you a little paddle, green or red. And you can just hold it up, red side, no speakers, green speakers, and that way okay. I will move the recommended action then.
I'll second.
And Member Mondragal will be the second. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Takes us to item number 2, the Housing Department. Second Amendment to Emergency Shelter and Navigation Center Operating Agreement, 324-00019. And the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee recommend that the City Council, 1, approve and authorize the mayor to execute the Second Amendment to Shelter and Navigation Center Operating Agreement 324-00019 with Mercy House for the provision of shelter and navigation center operations to increase the agreement from $3,228,297 to $3,243,102.16. I'm glad we remembered the 16 cents for them so that we don't cut them short. And I had to do the math. This comes out to about just a few bucks shy of $15,000. So it's not a huge change. But, and pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. And our housing director, Mr. Ramirez, is here to answer any questions or field any comments. Mayor?
I just want to thank you again, Mr. Ramirez. I think there was something that potentially they did not take into consideration until they started looking at the plans, and now at least you found it because it's not completely constructed, which I think is extremely important. And also one of the things is it's a safety issue. I think it's really important, and I think it's the important thing that is going to help us with our homeless issue and so forth, and like the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, it's a minimal amount compared to the total cost of the building, but I think it's something that I can support.
Member Madrigal, any comments?
No, thank you. I know it's much needed, so of course. fully support this.
I would just say I'm glad to see us moving forward on this. I was down Monday with EPA at the Halico site. And the newest thing we're experiencing down there is some of the people that are staying in the area are now digging under the foundations of the old buildings and creating underground nooks to live in. And there's also several encampments around the city that we really need to get them into services, into more adequate housing and move forward. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Need a motion? Well, wait a minute, speakers.
Yeah, any speakers?
Chair McDonald, there's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, and the request here is to approve and authorize the city manager or designee to execute the First Amendment to Permanent Local Housing Allocation Affordable Housing Loan Agreement, A8461, also abbreviated as PLHA Loan Agreement, between the city and Mercy House Living Centers, Mercy House, contingent on funding approval by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD. Also to approve and authorize the city manager or designee to execute the First Amendment to Measure O Loan Agreement 323000146 between the city and Mercy House.
Chair McDonald, if I can.
We missed it.
I believe you're reading.
Yeah, we missed number 2. We
The
didn't
staff
vote on
report
two.
for D3, if we go to D2.
All right. Okay,
So, I
if
make-
you're watching, disregard everything I just said for the last 5 minutes.
Where's that paddle you were talking about?
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, we need a motion
So moved.
Yeah,
and a second on item number 2. I just received a motion by Member Zaragoza,
I'll second.
a second by Member Madrigal. Please vote.
and I'm just gonna cede all my responsibilities to the city clerk. She's doing a wonderful job here, so. I'll
Thank
just
you,
sit
Chair.
back and look pretty, which is what I do best.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Okay, now this takes us to item number 3. Do I have to read all that stuff again since I read half of it already?
You were up to number
or-
5, so we're.
No.
Chair McDonald, you don't need to read that. It's on the agenda, so you can just indicate that what is proposed is the recommendations of the committee for a number of items relating to the issues with the Mercy House Living Centers.
Okay. So that takes us to item number 3, amendments to city loan agreements with Mercy House Living Center for the development of a new navigation center at Casa de Carmen, located at 241 West Second Street. And the recommendation is that the committee, or Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee recommend that the city council recommend items 1 through 6 listed in the actions to city council. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this issue?
Chair McDonald, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
And pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. And Mr. Ramirez, the housing director, is here to answer any questions or field any comments if the members have any.
Yeah.
Mr. Zaragoza?
Yeah, okay, this is Casa de Carmen over at 241 West Second Street. And is this the one with the grease trap?
That's correct.
And-
This is the one with the correction to that design error.
The 537,567. The question I have is, because we're doing that, Mr. Ramirez, then everybody has to approve that down the line? Is that what, because this changes everything from,
The primary change is adding that amount of $537,000 in order to redesign
The first floor.
the navigation center and add the grease trap. But it has collateral impact on a variety of other documents. And so we took advantage of this opportunity to clean up those other documents. The other ones, those other documents are really insignificant. The real issue is adding that $537,000.
so the opportunity was to correct those, not because of the 537?
Correct them because the time to construction took longer than expected and
Gotcha.
things like that.
And they all have to agree on what
They all are now,
In agreement.
as proposed, they're all in sync.
Okay. So we're going from 347,000 to $885,095, is that correct?
From the PLHA allocation, correct.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Good. Member Madrigal, any comments or questions?
No, I know it's progressing, so it's looking great. And, you know, if we need to fix this before it's built, then by all means.
Yep.
Can I have one quick question? What's the timeline on that so far?
We're expecting to have an occupancy permit for the building and the housing, January 2025 approximately.
That soon?
Yes, which is honestly about 6 months later than we had originally expected. Then the tenant improvements for the shelter will start thereafter, and we're hoping that that shelter then can be open within months after January.
But, Mr. Chair, even for a project that big, 6 months delay is not bad, you know, but potentially.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you.
No comment?
No comment.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I think I asked this, but I'll make sure there are no speakers, or yes, no?
That's correct. We have no speakers.
Okay. Well, you've seen all the recommendations and the actions, so what's the pleasure of the committee?
Ask.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion by Member Madrigal, second by Member Zaragoza. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Yeah, it takes us to item number 4. My goal here is to get through this one without goofing anything up. And the subject is a 5-year public housing agency plan, annual agency plan, and capital fund program for the 5-year action plan for low-rent public housing. And the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Economic Development Committee recommend that the Board of Commissioners, 1, hold a public hearing to receive comments concerning the 5th year of the 5-year public housing agency plan, the 2024 capital fund budget, and the capital fund budget capital fund 5-year action plan. And 2, adopt a resolution that A, approves, agency annual plan 5-year public housing agency, also known as PHA, plan for the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard. And next, authorizing and directing the chairman to execute the Department of Housing and Urban Development Public Housing Agency Certification Compliance Form, certifying the Housing Authority's compliance with federal policies and procedures. And next, authorizing the Housing Director to execute and submit all reports, documents, and all other certifications required to comply with policies and procedures of the Department of Housing and Urban Development regarding the annual agency plan and the 5-year PHA plan. And then next is approving the 2024 capital fund budget and capital fund 5-year action plan. And finally, authorizing the housing director to accept and expend the funds as indicated in the 2024 capital fund budget, capital fund 5-year action plan. And pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. And Housing Director, Mr. Ramirez, is still here to answer any questions or provide any comments should there be any.
Is this the Emilio Ramirez show?
We can call it that, sure.
So this is part of the 5-year plan. What year are we in now? Is that the fourth year of the 5-year plan?
This is the 5th year.
Oh, this is the last year?
Yeah.
Of the, so every year, of course, we have to report to HUD, you know, what we're doing, to PHA, and
This
what
is
we're
a
doing.
regular process that we undertake annually, yes.
Annually, yeah. And I understand then you talk to a lot of the tenants and can you,
Part of the regular process is to undertake a review with the participants and the tenants, and so we do that. They're pretty active. I wouldn't say a lot of the tenants. I think it's the same recurring members that participate, but they do participate and contribute to it. If I may, there are a couple things in here that I'd like to point out. I know that it was in the video, but I just would like to especially point it out.
and Brenda did a long, good presentation. It was really, really,
Brenda, everything Brenda does is excellent.
And just before you do that, Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item?
Chair McDonald, there's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, feel free to.
So a sizable amount of the staff report is about compliance with a new law, the Modernization Act. We call it HOTMA. So that is a lot of bureaucracy that we can read. So I'm going to skip that. But there are two things that I do want to place a light on. First is that we are making an amendment to what we're referring to as an involuntary displacement preference. An involuntary displacement preference is going to occur when one of three things occur, not all three at the same time. So those three things could be that they are displaced as a result of an improvement or a development project within the Oxnard Housing Authority. So we've undertaken that in the past. For example, we have to improve it. There was a damage to one of our units, and we have to repair that unit, and that causes a displacement. For that, we are seeking that person be moved up to the top of the priority list, and so they can be rehoused as we undertake the replacement or construction of the unit. Second is if they are displaced by government declaration of emergency or natural disaster. That is what just occurred 2 months ago during the floods. So if there was a natural disaster of some kind where the council or a government agency, whether the council or the board of supervisors or the state or et cetera, declares an emergency, then there is an opportunity that is granted to the director, in this case myself, that would expedite the provision of a voucher to a person that is being so displaced. And then displaced as a result of an extenuating circumstance that's certified by the housing director. So what that means is that it is granting me, and this is the reason that I wanted to bring it up, just to be absolutely clear, is granting me an authority which has been in existence at every other housing authority that I've ever worked on, and I can tell you that I've only used it once in my entire life. So it's going to be rare. What happened in that case, and we're thinking it's going to be this rare. There was an applicant. She was terminally ill, and she needed a place for residency to stabilize. So this is in Riverside County, so I authorized under this authority. Unfortunately, she passed away before she was able to move in, but that's the level of urgency that it has to rise to before I am going to use it. But it does give me the authority to essentially move a person all the way to the top of the list if there is a exigent circumstance that causes that emergency. Okay, so that's one thing that I wanted to mention, that new preference. The second one is not new. Is something that the council and the board of commissioners have been watching occur over the past 2 years. I first presented it to the board of commissioners under the flag of Rethink and Renew. And so in this case, we are looking at the process going forward for conversion. Conversion refers to a process where public housing is converted into private affordable housing, where it's supported by Section 8 voucher versus by public housing program. So we are actively in that process. We have procured a consultant, and we are working towards that. The second,
Emilio, I'm sorry. You said if we have a building, that's a housing authority building, that potentially can be run by a private company, is that what you're saying, or you can sell it?
we don't intend on selling it, or at least my intent. My personal preference, my intent is to not sell the public housing, but to convert them into housing authority-owned affordable housing. So
I see. Okay.
what that means is that if it's public housing, HUD sends us a subsidy to run that operation.
Okay.
In this case, they convert to affordable housing, and so we issue a voucher, and that rent pays back to us, and we use that rent to operate the housing
But
authority.
it's not housing authority rent per se.
It is a Section 8 paid rent
affordable,
that is
okay.
paid to us as the landlord.
Okay, well,
Okay, so there's a difference there. The primary difference is that the public housing operating subsidy is for sure, it's coming. Even though HUD is saying that they're going to eventually terminate the program, we don't know when, but it is for sure. Okay, so the affordable housing conversion, the private housing, is subject to the market and et cetera, so it is a little bit more risky. But the plus side of that, of the converted affordable housing, is that it is just more revenue. So
yeah.
public housing, they send us whatever Congress appropriates, 80% of the need to operate, 90% of the need to operate, versus the voucher pays the full rent.
But, so, Mr. Chair, so it's affordable, but they'll pay a little bit more than a public housing tenant.
The client is gonna pay exactly the same rent that they always pay. They're gonna pay
Okay.
30% of their income.
But-
But the voucher will pay the difference of
The
the rent,
difference.
and that voucher comes to us.
Well, it makes it affordable.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for,
That's okay.
okay. I just
This-
want to understand it.
Second, as part of this also process, we are also undertaking an effort to consider 2 choice neighborhood grant applications. And we have engaged a consultant to ask to score 2 areas in town. One of them is in South Oxnard along Wainimi corridor that will capture the public housing complex on Cuesta, and the other one on Squires. So that community is being reviewed to see if it would score for a choice neighborhood grant. The other one is Colonia. So the neighborhood of Colonia from south of Camino and north of Third and east of Oxnard and west of Rose, that area is being considered. Depending on which one scores better for a competitive allocation from HUD, we would apply for a planning grant to write a strategic redevelopment plan. That is an amount of $500,000. If that is successful, then we would apply for an implementation grant, and that implementation grant is really the goal, and that is $50 million. And that $50 million goes to investment in one of those 2 neighborhoods, depending on which one competes better. So I wanted to point those 2 things out because I understand even though we've been talking about them for quite some time, they're kind of hidden in this, but therein lies the objective. If that does work, we're looking at maybe the next 10 years of work at the Housing Authority for both conversion and choice neighborhood.
Would that help Las Cortes? That's just totally
Absolutely. So Las Cortes is within that neighborhood of Colonia.
Yeah.
And if Colonia competes better than Wainimi, then definitely it'll go forward.
That'll really help
It is a
us.
highly competitive application with the federal government. It's a little bit of a dream to undertake this because
But it's good.
obviously $50 million is a sizable amount of money. And so we're gonna assess both areas and see which one will score better and pursue an investment in the area that does score better.
I think Las Cortes probably needs it better more. Anyway,
It's based on a lot of different things,
Yeah.
poverty demographics, income, employment, crime, et cetera.
because Las Cortes has been in process for 15, 16 years or more, probably.
At least, I think.
Yep. I remember 200 years ago when, when they started Las Cortes. That one, my apologies for.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay,
Anything else?
no, you're,
That's what I wanted to point out. The balance of it, like you said, is relatively standard. Capital fund and then the HOTMA thing that I described.
can I show one more thing?
Yeah.
I've been getting a lot of calls, and I'm not sure if I can even talk about this, about people being downsized, from 3 rooms to 2 rooms to 1 room and so forth. And people have called me up and says, I've been in this one unit for 20 years, or 17 years, and et cetera, and I'm being moved down from a 3 to a 2 to a 1, so are we conveying that information to the public or to the tenant, excuse me? Not to the tenant.
We are actively doing that. That is a requirement of HUD. We will get into some serious trouble if we don't do that. We've been not faithfully following the regulations for a long time. Just because, I mean, as you can imagine, it's a difficult thing to undertake, and it's just you have to bite the bullet and you have to move forward. What happens, for example, is if you have a family that's living in a 3-bedroom, and that family, their kids grew up and they moved out and et cetera, so now it's just a couple living in a 3-bedroom. They are what's called overhoused, okay? So they're over-subsidized by HUD, and HUD doesn't like that. So they want that household to be housed in the right-sized unit. And that's the process that we're undertaking. We should have been undertaking for quite some time, but in the past few years, we've been undertaking it, and it doesn't make them very happy.
And again, I want to thank Brenda for, I sent her quite a few of those people, you know, that don't fully understand. Maybe we need to do more outreach to the tenants to let them know, you know, what you're doing.
We do quite a bit of outreach, and for that, I think Brenda deserves a lot of
Agree.
recognition. She's also the one that's making this happen, so, I mean, it's a headache. It's not an easy thing to undertake, and so she's assumed that headache.
My apologies for, but I think those, you know, I'm sure we all get those questions, you know. Thank you.
You good?
Yeah.
Member Madrigal, any comments or questions?
No, thank you for explanation and everything that went into this.
Thank you.
Thank you, good job. I'll move the recommended action,
I'll second.
and we have a second by Member Madrigal. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
That takes us to item E, items for future agendas. Do members have any requests to bring anything back in the future?
No.
No? That will take us to item F. Barring anything else, we will be adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sorry.